So if we look at the Avodah, the Avodah is made up really of piyutim, or one piyut, and through history, through the years, they've always been different piyutim that have described the Avodah. Now, why is it so important to have this Avodah? So we actually read in the Haftorah last week. It says "Unashalma parim svatenu," that our lips will complete the parim, will complete the korbanot. Meaning that if we say the korbanot and we say them out, so then it's as if, in a way, because we don't have an option, it's as if we've said we've brought the korban through saying it with our lips. And that's really what the concept is of tefillah, is avodah shebalev, that prayer is the service of Hashem, which means the korbanot in one way. A service of the heart is the tefillah. So therefore, we say these words properly, and we understand the words properly, so then we kind of fulfill, in a way, that obligation. But remember, the avodah is not just your average tefillah. So on Shabbos Musaf, we have and we have that whole thing which describes the Musaf on Shabbos. And the Musaf on Shabbos was a very great celebration and a means of connecting with HaKadosh Baruch Hu on a personal level as well as a communal level. Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch has a whole discussion on that. And each one of the different korbanot for all the different chagim, they all part and parcel of engaging with the simcha of the chag, with the purpose of the chag, with the goal of the chag. But the Yom Kippur Avodah is a completely different space, because the Yom Kippur Avodah is not just merely to engage with the day, but it's to engage with what the day really means. Because the Yom Kippur Avodah is all about slicha and kapara. It's all about forgiveness and atonement. And if that's the case, it means that our connection to the Avodah is a connection that should bring, by the process of us going through it, not just as if we've brought the korban, but it also needs to bring the space of slicha and kapara. It needs to bring that as well. And if that's the case, so therefore Chazal say, we need to say it with real conviction and with real kavanah. And that's why we have different piyutim which describe them, because the piyutim set a certain tone for what the avodah is going to be. Now there are two main nuschot for the avodah. The one is the one that the Sfardim say, which really is actually it's a much clearer nusach. It doesn't have the floweriness of ours. And then there's ours. Ours was written by Meshulam ben Clonimus, who was one of the great sages that Rashi praises. So he's we're talking about 1,000 years ago, where this man came along and he wrote this poem. And remember, during the time of the Middle Ages and just before, there was a lot of poetry being written in the European countries. If you remember that it started out with the great communities of Mainz and Speer and all those places where in Germany, where the Jewish communities were built up there, and then those communities get destroyed, but before they get destroyed, people like Rashi and other great French teachers go and learn in Germany and bring that learning skill into the French Jewry. German Jewry gets destroyed, but then French Jewry takes over, and that's where we have the main Rishonim are coming from that space. That's Rashi, the Rabbeinu Tam, or the Balei Tosfot come from French Jewry. Now, so this is just before that, but it's part of that very flowery European way of expressing self. And so therefore, when we look at our nusach that we as the Ashkenazim have, it's called Amitz Koach, named after the first two words of the piyut, and it really is it's very difficult because of the floweriness of it, and it's only kind of towards the end that it actually gets to the point. But in a nutshell, if you look at it carefully, you'll see, if you can see the screen, so it speaks about the creation of the world. It starts off with HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the creator, and all the different things that he creates. And I don't want to go through the whole thing because it's really very, very long. And but really goes through the whole of creation. It goes through the way you can see here that when you form man from clay in the likeness of your image, breathe into him the pure soul from Zavul. Zavul is one of the levels of heaven. You cause him to sleep, and from his side you fashion a helpmate. And it goes on just describing all of the incredible things that even described how what happened with the Nachash. It describes the creation of the first child, and she becomes pregnant, and then that thing goes belly up with Cain killing Hevel, and it goes through all the whole process. Noach, and then it speaks about Avram. It speaks about the children of Israel. Then it speaks of where we'll go from here is you desired Levi, your pious one. From his tribe, you chose one Aaron to be your holiest, to wear the holy mitre and the Urim V'Tumim, to dwell inside the tabernacle for 7 days. The Sanhedrin, that goes a little bit later, a week before the 10th day of Tishrei. Now it starts describing what the Mishnayos describe. Because if you look into the Mishnayos of Yoma, they describe this whole process. And what happens, and what Amitz Koach does, is takes those Mishnayos and puts them into this piyut, into this poem. But let's look at it now to what happens. So the Sanhedrin would take the high priest, the Kohen Gadol of the time, okay, and they would take him and they would sprinkle water on him. Obviously, they need to purify him because he's going to be the person that is going to go into the Kodesh Kodashim, that won the holiest man on the holiest day in the holiest place. And each day he starts practicing. He starts practicing the things that he needs to do on the daily basis. And what do we do on a daily basis? On the daily basis, we bring the Korban Todah, and we do all the necessary work for the menorah and all of these things that he does. And one of the most important parts of those days where he's secluded is that he's taught by the Sanhedrin, and they beg him in a way. They beg him and they say to him, please learn exactly how to do it properly. It's so important that it's done properly, because whatever the Kohen Gadol does will make sure that this Avodah turns out to be a space in which Bnei Israel will get a kapara. So in the morning on the 9th day, he goes to the eastern gate. They bring all the animals that he's going to have to bring up as a korban. They bring it to him, and then he stops eating. Why does he stop eating? And it's quite fascinating. He doesn't stop eating because it's time to fast. Obviously, he needs to fast, but before he stops eating, because we're concerned. We're concerned about the fact that if he eats too much, then he's going to be too satisfied. And if he's too satisfied, he's going to sleep very deeply. And if he sleeps very deeply, he might have inappropriate dreams, and therefore he'll become tameh. And if he becomes tameh, then you've got a big problem, because you can't do. So what do we do? So the elders come and they teach him how to do everything. They exactly what to do. And what they do is that one of the main things that they do is that they teach him, or they make him promise that he'll do the Ketoret in the right way. Now, why is that so important? Because if you remember, the Torah describes the Ketoret in one way, and the Torah Shebaal Peh, the oral law, describes it in a different way. And the reason why they make him promise is because the time of the Tzedukim, the time of the Sadducees and the Prushim, is that there were the Tzedukim who held that you did it a certain way, which wasn't the way of the Torah Shebaal Peh. So therefore, they'd make him take this oath. And as it says, his flesh crept with fear, and he cried because he was suspected. He was concerned that they thought that he was a tzedukah. So he's terrified because they think it's a tzedukah, and the elders, the Sanhedrin, turn aside and they cry because they suspect him. This is the Erev Yom Kippur. This is the time where everybody's supposed to, as we know, we stand up in front of the on Kol Nidra, and we say, Anu matirin litpalel im avaryonim. We matir ourselves to daven with all the avaryonim, with all those who are sinners. Why? Because it's a time where we don't think about what other people have done. We think about community. We think about togetherness. We think about the nation and the whole nation getting its kapara. And here they are, the holiest man that's supposed to be going into the Kodesh Kodashim, and they suspect him. And what they do is they keep him awake the whole night. And if you remember the Avodah, and we'll go through it, please God, over the next couple of days, the Avodah is very, very intense. There's a lot of work to do, but they're keeping up the whole night, so that he doesn't have any inappropriate dreams, and he must be exhausted. And eventually the time comes where they choose. What they do is for the Trumas Hadeshen. The Trumas Hadeshen is this cleaning up of the ashes. And they start the whole process, of the daily process. And as they start the whole process, and this is just the rest just goes through what the process is about, and then it says it's time for him to start his process. And what does he do? The first thing he does is that he goes off into the mikveh. He goes into the mikveh, and when he goes into the mikveh, then he puts on the 8 golden garments. Now, those 8 golden garments are what we call the kavod l'tifaret. These are the clothes of the Kohen Gadol, and he goes and he puts them on in order to represent HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. He washes his hand and feet, and what does he do? And he shechts the first korban, and this is all outside the Kodesh Kodashim, where everybody can see what he's doing. But he just makes the initial shchita. Somebody else comes and completes it. The reason is because he's got so much else to do. So he goes and he burns the incense on the inner altar. Then he cleans the wicks. He does the morning of. He does everything, and he does a certain type of nisuch hayayin on the mizbeach. And now that he's done with the morning, the normal everyday morning offering, he then goes to the next part. Again, he goes to the parvit chamber. He's going to go into the mikveh. He washes his hands and his feet, and he takes off his golden garments. Now, this is an important thing. When he takes off his golden garments, what he's going to do is he's going to go into the mikveh. He's going to wash his hands and feet, and he's going to put on these white garments. Are beautiful garments. These are garments that are only going to be used only for once ever, and that's for this specific Yom Kippur experience. And what does he do? He takes this ox. And this ox is his ox. It's the ox that he is going to now do vidui for himself and for his family. And he leans on it. And it's quite interesting. He has to lean as heavy as he can. And on it, he does the vidui. And this is where we start our whole process of what we know as the Avodah. This is where we, as the community, come together, having listened to this whole process. Now he stands before and he does this confession, he does this vidui. And this vidui he starts, Ana Hashem chatati avitu bashat lefanecha ani ubeiti, me and my household. Ana Vashem. And at each time he's saying Vashem, Vashem. These are the names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kaperna, lachataim, lavonot, lapashaim, shechatati, shaviti. I ask for different types of atonement, of mechila, of his expression of sorry for all the sins that he may have done. And each one of these sins, which we'll explain, please God, tomorrow we'll go into a bit more depth. Each one of them has a different nuance. It's not just sins. There are different types of sins. There's sins we do with on purpose, by mistake, all different types of things. And then it says, why does he do it? Because on this day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says you'll get everything will be tower, everything will become clear. Become cleansed spiritually. And then it says, Va'kwanim va'am hamdim ba'azara, that the Kwanim and the nation that are standing there in the Azara, they hear the shame, they hear Hashem's name. Now, what we do when we hear Hashem's name, Baruch Atah Hashem, we say, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo. But when they heard the name of the Kohen Gadol, who says that Mefurash Jatzei Kohen Gadol B'Kedusha V'Tara, the name of Hashem is experienced in a experience of sanctity and of purity. What do they do? Which is what we do now. They would bow down, they prostrate themselves, umodim v'noflim al panayim, they'd fall on their face and they'd say what you say whenever you hear the Shem Hashem in the Beis Hamikdash, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed, which is fascinating because those are the words that we say after we say Shema Yisrael. And there's Midrashim why we say that. But if we really think about it, what it's really taking us back to is Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad is the most holy and experience in this world that we can have. It's a space of Kedusha, it's a space of Tara. We invoke HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and therefore we also say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. And that is the first part of the Avodah of the Kohen. And then we'll carry on, please God, tomorrow, continuing what he does, the next process, because he's going to do another kapora, he's going to do a whole lot of other changings, and all of those are part of the process of the avodah. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Please God, we'll see you tomorrow.